We'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to invite Dylan and Walker Grant to come forward and lead us in the pledge. If we'd all stand and face the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'd come to the microphone, gentlemen. Both of you. Dylan and Walker Grant are in the Boy Scouts. I understand our chief is are you a Scoutmaster or Assistant Scoutmaster?
I am an Assistant Scoutmaster with Troop 469 and an Assistant Webelos Den Leader with Pack 469.
And Dylan, are you in the Boy Scouts?
Yes.
And what is your rank?
I'm a first class scout.
First class, I think you're working on your star.
Yes, sir.
And Walker, are you in the scouting program?
No, I'm in the Cub Scouts.
That is in the scouting program. You're a Cub Scout. Welcome here tonight. We're glad to have you. We have a bunch of scouts up here. Councilman Orleans was a Life Scout. Councilman DiPolito was a Life Scout. Councilman Price is the proud mother of an Eagle Scout. And my brother and I were Eagle Scouts, so you're in good company. Work on your scouting programs. Get a head start on your community and citizenship. You may have a seat. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilman Orleans. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? Yes, come forward, sir. If you'll give us your name and address. And
Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. I want it on record. Item number 3. What budget line item account that is going to be charged to? That's the improvement of the infrastructure, the water plant, distribution grid. I want to know exactly what account that is going to.
yes, sir. Thank you for your question. Mr. Fisher, you have that answer.
No, Mayor, I do not on that item unless there's somebody from budget that might have that. I don't have that with me.
Microphone, please.
Oh, this is a description. Turn your mic on. You did. It'll be transferred from the Atlanta Street 12-inch ductile iron water main project. And it'll be put into the Spring Drive water line replacement project, which will total $420,000.
Do you have a more specific answer?
Mark Wolf at the Public Works Department. It was budgeted as a capital item, so it's a capital project. It's not out of the operational budget.
It's not coming out of the general fund. Is that what you're telling me? Coming out of the water fund?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Oh, a question. Councilmember Price.
Could we just summarize the changes of the special events, since that will be a change that might affect people listening?
The proposed change to the policy for the special event deals with the resources that have been involved in the special events, in particular for the past year. We've had 40 events within the city that have used city resources. We are running into a situation where we have the A and C squads from the police department. They're going from 7 to 8 weeks without any time off. We have 23 events that all have road closures. We have 11 events that are on city properties. We have 23 events that are low-packed of routes and 17 events that are high impact now. What we're proposing here is that we have those standard 5 routes that we will offer that are low impact, that we have no events where they exceed 17 officers at one time, and that let's see if there's anything else. And this will mean that a certain number of those events will not be eligible for sponsorship, those events that are in excess of 17 officers. Yeah, they would have, unless they do the low impact route. Thank you.
So for anybody who's like trying to set up a run or a walk, what change will they see?
What change will they see is that they will be asked to go to a low impact route.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Diamond.
Alice, I've been meaning to ask you this. This calendar that's really helpful, the projected events for 2014, once we have actual events booked, will that be available anywhere on the website, or is that someplace that people can see what's already taking place? I know the CVB does one, but this might
The
be
CVB does one. We generally don't put those on the especially not on the city's calendars, unless they receive sponsorship from the city of Roswell.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time I'd like to recognize Melinda Springman as our Fulton County Principal of the Year. Is Melinda here? No. Melinda is probably at PTA. If Melinda comes in, please let me know, because we wanted to recognize her as... Can someone tell us, who put this on the agenda? Well, and which school is Melinda at? Elkins Point Middle School, and she's been named as Fulton County Principal of the Year. So we wanted to recognize her, and being a busy person, I can understand why she is not here. So we'll turn to Councilmember Nancy Diamond, Liaison to the Community Development Department, to call her agenda.
Thank you, sir. This item is RZ 201-301-339, CV 201-301-341, 12055 Howells, and 365, 375, and 395 Rucker Road, William R. Hull, D&B Development Company, land lots 1281 and 1282. This item was deferred on August 12th, and Mr. Townsend's here to talk about it.
Thank you. This is a rezoning application on Howes Road and Rucker Road. This is an aerial of the subject property. There are 3 2-acre parcels that adjoin Rucker Road, a large parcel that adjoins Howes Road for this particular property. It's 16 acres. The applicant is requesting an R3A zoning for 44 lots. This is the zoning map of the proposed rezoning location. The request originally was for 47 lots. There was a revised site plan that reduced it by 3 lots and also included an open space tract. The application does include a variance to the minimum lot size from 80 feet of width to 50 feet of width, or 60 feet of width. This is the comparison provided from the R3A to the R3A designation for the minimum width size, as well as the comparison to our RS9 unadopted, unapproved, just proposed UDC category. This was the layout that was before Mayor and Council, including the 47 lots, including the access to Howes Road. This is the site plan for the 44 lots that includes an open space track as well as parking. It does have a curve more in the access roads, provides a little different lot configuration, and that is the plan that is before you this evening for approval. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this application with the variance to the minimum lot size. Staff would recommend approval of the resolution before you this evening to the 44 lots with the concurrent variance from 80 to 60 feet. Put at your dais this evening were two resolutions. They are the same resolutions. One resolution has strike-through and underlines that shows what's being deleted. They both have the same number of conditions, 15 conditions. One of them, the one copy is a clean copy, which we'll probably work through this evening if there are any amendments or changes to the conditions, if you have any questions.
For the folks in the audience, would you want to pull up those conditions on the screen and go over them?
Condition number 1 deals with the site plan before you this evening. Condition number 2 controls the vehicular access to the reserve of Crabapple Stub Street, indicating that there will be no vehicular access to the property. Condition number 3 deals with right-of-way requirements to Rucker Road, as well as the developer shall pay $1,850 per lot. Staff would recommend that this condition may include language that this money would be paid prior to the final plat. That just gives it some timing of, we will know how many lots that are being proposed, and they would pay it at the time of final plat. Condition number 4 relates to the stormwater concept plan to the Public Works. Condition number 5 indicates that there is not a guarantee of the approval of number of lots related to the water plan. Number 6 deals with peak flow from the proposed development, shall be reduced by 10%. Number 7 deals with the existing dam and lake and residential driveway at 12055 Howes Road and how that is to be replaced. Number 8 deals with the front entry garages and the look of that they have to be 5 feet behind the main wall of the house. Number 9 relates to the visual and physical buffers related to the entire Rucker Road where the homes will back onto, and that is to be approved, buffers to be approved by the Design Review Board, and the homes are to face in and not out, and that's number 10. Number 11 deals with the entrance street to be built, dealing with the Howes Road lake bed. Number 12 deals with the dedication along Howes Road and the design of that entrance to be right in, right out, or full access, and would be restricted during AM, PM hours determined by Roswell Department of Transportation. Number 13 relates to the natural buffer that backs on to Camber Trace, dealing with the existing drive. We have details related to buffer landscaping and materials, dealing when it should be reduced. That a buffer will also be approved by the Design Review Board. Number 14 deals with the natural screening and planting, dealing with the existing Barrow Downs and the 40-foot undisturbed buffer. Number 15 deals with planting of at least 66% of the city's required density units on the development to be approved by the city arborist.
Do you have a copy of the proposed site plan that you can put on the screen? Thank you. Does the council have any questions for staff? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple comments, the first of which is that under item number 2, it says that there will not be any vehicular access. I have discussed at length with both the Reserve at Crabapple, the developer, and have heard from the surrounding neighborhoods that they'd prefer there not to be any vehicular or pedestrian access. So that can be a point of discussion, or we can add that going in. Also wanted to add that there has been a lot of time and energy spent on both sides of this. The neighbors, surrounding neighborhoods, and the developer have spent a tremendous amount of time negotiating this. A lot of time this week working on putting together this resolution, and I wanted to thank them for their time. I think there is agreement, unless we hear otherwise tonight, that there is agreement among the parties to the conditions that we've set forth here. So, and I agree with Mr. Townsend's comment about the recording of the fees to be paid at the recording of the plat.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Mayor.
Oh, Councilmember Price.
Can you tell me what, on that curve, there's little
Parking spaces.
parking spaces, okay. And that park area would be like more of a buffer or mown grass or?
I don't believe it's been completely designed. I'm sure it would have some type of amenities.
And then there's going to be a boundary between that subdivision and the next one or not?
You mean at this location here? If you look at the screen?
Yeah, no, farther to the west, I guess?
That,
Yes.
if you look at the aerial, that's their detention pond. This is where the proposed buffer would be. So they have a buffer in their detention area. Their homes don't start until after the cul-de-sac.
I mean, what I'm saying is there a fence or anything there proposed?
I don't believe there's been a boundary structure proposed at that location.
Neither proposed nor restricted?
There's none required, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Diamond.
Can answer that. It's about a 16-foot drop from the edge of that stub road to the next property, so it's kind of a natural delineation.
Any other questions? This time we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Don Rollator, 11660 Alpharetta Highway, Suite 630, Roswell. I'm here tonight with Bill Hull and David Hull, who will be developing this project, and with Steve Rowe from AEC, who's done our design and drawing work. I'll wholeheartedly concur with the summary that Brad has given you. There's no use duplicating it or regurgitating it. Along with Councilman DiPolito, I would like to thank Chris Foley from Barra Downs, Herman Costin from the Reserve, Michael Harmon from the Registry. A lot of people have put a lot of work into this so that this document you see as a resolution tonight is an actual work that came from the input of an awful lot of people. I would tell you, so we all understand how this came about, Bill and David went to Jackie and Brad on April 24th of this year with a proposed plan. That plan showed 9,000 square foot lots, showed reduction to 60 feet. The first time that Mr. Hull and his son David ever learned that there was such a thing as an RS9 was at that meeting. Jackie and Brad were kind enough to discuss it with them. As a result of all of this effort on this resolution, it winds up that it meets almost every requirement in the entire new ordinance should you adopt it, including the setback of the garages from the house fronts. But it was something that they fell upon. They certainly didn't plot to go around it because they didn't know it existed. This development has a dedicated green space. It and the cottages at Crabapple are the only two in the area that have any dedicated green space whatsoever. I would tell you that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. It's in harmony with surrounding subdivisions. It's got the staff's recommendation of approval. It's got the planning commission recommendation of approval. It's been thoroughly digested by the Public Works Department. That's how we came out with the design for the driveway and doing away with the lake up there. It's had substantial input from the Transportation Department. We had a meeting with them just recently. So that in all of those ways, it's the culmination of a lot of effort from a lot of people. The one clarification I discussed with Brad we want everybody to understand is the developer has agreed to a voluntary contribution of $1,850 a lot. That has to occur right before the recording of the final plat because we won't know how many lots we have until that's ready for recording. Other than that, I can go on and on and on about this application, but there's no need to do that this time. I would rather you have public comment and that you understand that it is unique in many ways, and it's less dense than most of all the things around it, number one. Number two, it's similar. Its lot size is equal to the biggest lot sizes of anything except Barrow Downs. All the other small lot subdivisions are the same size or smaller. And it has done everything it's supposed to do. So with that said, tonight I would tell you that if this proposed resolution is adopted as it is proposed, then the developer and the applicant is in agreement with it, as I think you will find the homeowners associations. I say that to qualify it, because when we start changing it, then I might have to hem and haw and do a little dance for you, and I hope we don't have to do that tonight. Awful lot of people put an awful lot of work into this, and I think we have a good document as it is. I would like to invite at this time any questions that you might have on the front side, and other than that, Mayor, we would reserve our remaining time for approval, for rebuttal, if necessary.
Does the council have any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Price.
Last time when we were here, I think we knew that Barrow Downs pretty much had their concerns addressed, as did the cottages at Crabapple, but we heard a lot of issues, and I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the entity below, south?
Crabapple Woods.
Crabapple Woods, okay, sorry. I know they were concerned, obviously, with the access road. So what is the final agreed-upon path or whatever of that road?
What this resolution does is allow the road to be moved as far north on the property as it can be, number one. Number two, it provides a buffer below the road all the way to the property line, and it includes landscape screening to knock down headlights and to reduce noise. And it also includes a guardrail on the portion of the property where there's a grade differential, so that the three things that would affect those homeowners the most, being light, noise, and public safety, have been addressed, to which I think you will find to their satisfaction when the public speaks in a little bit. Those are the focuses that went on. We moved the road, we improved the road, we did away with the lake, and we enhanced the buffers along the south side of the road.
And the access at House is what exactly? Is it
Yes.
right in, right out? Or?
No, we anticipate, after our discussions with transportation, that it will be a full-service entrance, but it will have qualifications in that it will be posted with signs that left-turn traffic is not permitted during the morning rush and the evening rush, which I think alleviates the problem to the benefit of all concerned.
So those signs would be interior?
That would be interior to the subdivision.
Any other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, just a couple clarifications. The way the condition is written regarding the access to Howes Road, it also allows for a right-in, right-out. There has not been enough engineering completed at this point to determine which those could be. So
That's correct.
It would be one or the other, depending on how the engineering turns out.
It's up to the final
process.
approval of the Department of Transportation.
Right. And then also with respect, Councilmember Price, if you want to look at conditions 7 and conditions 13, those specifically address the concerns that Crabapple Woods had regarding the stormwater, which is identified in condition number 7. And right now there is a pond with a failing outlet structure, and the idea there is to pipe that section underneath the road and connect that directly to a storm system connection on the south side of Crabapple Woods. My understanding is the property owner with the lake actually doesn't want the lake, so the lake will actually just be just draining through this outfall structure and down directly into the drainage system down in Crabapple Woods. So that alleviates all of those flooding concerns that they had. Then with respect to concerns for safety, noise, privacy, and the just appearance of this road from Howes Road, Condition 13 deals with keeping a lot of the natural buffer. There's a pretty good buffer that exists there now. It's not technically a buffer, but there's a lot of trees. that exist between the property line and the existing road, and they'd like to leave those, but have that area supplemented with additional plantings to provide the screening from the new road that's going to be installed to the north.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Rollator.
Thank you, Mayor.
At this time, we'll hear from the public. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. There's a 5-minute time limit. We'd like to give your name and address when you begin speaking, and then turn the speaker card before you sit down. Yes, sir, come forward, please.
My name is Herman Costin. I'm the treasurer, and I represent the reserve at Crabapple. I'm here to discuss an issue that's already been taken out of the resolution, but to answer any questions any of you may have, I'm going to make a presentation very briefly. I'm going to address the pathway connectivity between the reserve at Crabapple and the new subdivision, and I'm basing my comments on comments from our residents and a meeting on site that I had with David Hull from D&B a little over a week ago. So we put a lot of thought and a lot of concentration in this. I've already communicated about the wide discrepancy between the profile of the residents of the reserve at Crabapple and the residents of the new subdivision, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. But in addition to that, I have 5 other reasons why we believe we should not have pathway connectivity between the two communities. First of all, our residents are very opposed to it. They envision that it would disturb the peace and quiet of our neighborhood, and they see absolutely no benefit to them for this connectivity. Second, there is a 16, as Nancy said, there's a 16-foot drop at the end of the stub to the grade level below that has to be addressed, and I want to emphasize that that drop-off is on our property. In other words, the stub doesn't run up to the end of the property. There's a 22.5-foot distance between the curb of the stub and the end of our property. So that drop-off is all on our property, okay? Third, to ramp up to that 16-foot difference, there would have to be massive soil movement and disturbance of the green area that the developer has put in place to make the whole development look a lot better and to give us some good green space. In addition to that, between our property and their property, we would have to take out between 25 and 40 trees, some as high as 50 feet. So I think that's a very important point. But then the next issue is probably the most important, and that is the safety. Can you envision having a ramp where an 8-year-old boy is going to go down it on a bicycle or a skateboard, and the danger and the exposure that you have? So what would have to happen in this case is you'd have to build a cage around it. There would have to be a cage, or you'd have a massive liability. Fifth, there'd be a big question about the future maintenance and the liability of such a ramp and structure. So for that reason, we asked that the pathway be permanently eliminated, and want to emphasize that this scenario is completely different than the 2 developments across the street where you had connectivity between the Crabapple Registry and the Crabapple Manor, because the surface was flat, there's no trees to be removed, so there's no safety issue. So it's a complete different scenario, and that has to be taken in consideration. Beyond that, we think the developer's done a tremendous job of putting this together. This green space that he's put in is going to be viewed as you come down the street. It's going to be in the middle of the development, so it's an ideal situation. The road to Howes, as far as I'm concerned, made a major improvement in the traffic flow onto Rucker Road and divided it up between those 2 roads, and I think that's a very positive thing. So with all those things put together, and the beauty of the new houses that are recommended, we strongly recommend that this resolution be approved for the developer, and we think it's going to be a real asset for our surrounding neighborhood and for the city of Roswell as well. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to speak next? Yes, sir, come forward.
All right, my name is Thomas Bard. I'm at 1410 Primrose Drive, and I represent the Crabapple Creek and Crabapple Walk subdivisions across the street from Howes. The only problem we have with the whole plan, everything looks good except for the road to Howes. We take issuance with number 12, and that is a signs to tell people when to turn left and when not to. Signs are nice, but of course they're just a suggestion really for most people at best. We would prefer a hard right turn in, right turn out only to help with the traffic so we don't have people cutting across the road. And it wouldn't be as bad if the road matched up with Crabapple Walk, but the road's about 15 or 20 feet south of that, and it doesn't create a good flow at all. And I believe also south of us, Saddle Creek would also agree that a right turn in, right turn out is the way to go for that road.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to speak next? Yes, come forward, please.
Hello, I'm Anthony Russell. I live in Crabapple Registry, and I just want to make a couple points. Going back to the road, I'm really pleased to see there is consideration to not, it's just the Howes Road connection, to it not being right in, right out only, and the consideration of the developer providing funds for the future development of Rucker Road. I am concerned with the right in, right out on Howes, simply because this is going to further congest Rucker. The Rucker backup because at the Howes intersection is bad during rush hour. Having just right in, right out, I think would help that intersection during rush hour, but having an unrestricted access would certainly not add as much congestion to Rucker as with the right turn only. I am concerned about the elimination of the pedestrian connectivity. It seems that there is some inequity in the development between my neighborhood and the Ashton Woods development next door, where the council required connectivity. There was a good deal of slope between the property next door to us that was, eliminated by the builder. There were a significant number of trees, very large trees cut to build that trail. I watched them go down, so I disagree with the comment earlier that there were no trees or no dirt movement to happen. I mean, anytime these subdivisions are built, there's huge amounts of dirt to be moved, so adding a slope there should not be an undue hardship on the builder. It just seems to me that there is an equity between what was required for us and what's being required here, or what's being proposed here. I think the homeowners in my subdivision would be very disappointed to be treated differently, and we would probably come back and ask a lot of questions about how do we resolve and can we make our trail go away, because it certainly seems like if it's required, if it's not required here, why was it required for us? But those are the extent of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no hands up, we're closing the public hearing. Mr. Rollator, not a lot to rebut. Yes, sir, I think I have one more hand up. Yes, sir, come forward, please.
My name is David Spaeth. I live at 385 Camber Trace, right below the existing lake that is there. And I spoke with Stuart Mooring, of the Director of Public Works with the Roswell City, and I would just like to ask a question of you guys, that make sure that there's a hydrology study done before the road is approved. I spoke with North Fulton County Water Department as well, and they're told me that it wouldn't be wise to have such a large street built on that property with the way the water is flowing from north to south. And just being a resident on Camber Trace there, all of our houses are below the property, so the water would flow right into our homes, and if there was a major storm, it would flood the first floor of our homes. So I just ask that you please, as a public servant, please have a hydrology study done for that property line, that that sewer storm drain would go right next to my property, right under my property, into that stormwater drain. So I just have a lot of concern that there won't be enough studies done, and that it's approved by your Public Works Department before that road is actually approved to begin with. So that's what I kind of just am here to make sure you ask that question, that a hydrology study will be done in order before that road is put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, may I respond to that?
Yes, sir, you may respond to that.
Thank you. Condition number 4, if you look at our list of conditions, is that a stormwater concept plan approved by the Public Works Department shall be completed prior to the submittal of the preliminary plat. So that addresses your concern where they have to bring that forward to our Public Works Department, who has been very involved to this point. So they will continue to be very involved, and before the road is approved at all, that will be discussed with them.
Any other questions? Mr. Rollator.
I'll just address the one comment involving the access to House Road that has been studied in depth by your department and by us. It won't be full access unless the department says it can. The key to that is to have separation of 125 feet. It will have to have that, and we anticipate that that will be there. Number 2, House Road is a state road, so it's also going to require the approval of the Georgia DOT. So I think we're safe in relying upon our experts. I would tell you from our standpoint, if we restrict it during peak hours, it makes much better sense for our residents. If they're 44 in total, some of them might want to go down to Roswell. When it's not rush hour, you come out that road and you can take a left and go down House Road. It sure makes it simpler than having to make 3 lefts. So that's our rationale, and did have the full input of the Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does the council have any final questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any comments before I entertain a motion? Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you. Who's here? Oh, David. No, Stormwater. Mark. Sorry. Y'all sitting there together. I'm just... Mark, hey. Could you address the concerns of the gentleman about a hydrology study? Does conditions number 4, does that cover his concerns?
The condition is for the developer to meet with our stormwater engineer and present their concepts and discuss the concept. After that is when they're required to submit the hydrology study as part of their land disturbance permit. So the condition is a requirement anyway of a land disturbance permit that they meet with the stormwater engineer prior to discuss their study, and then as part of their submittal for the land disturbance permit, they submit the study and we approve that.
So a hydrology study is required?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's
so
what I need.
The condition is actually a requirement anyway of the city.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I'm not sure who this one is for, but Mr. Russell brings up an interesting point that we required connectivity between one and not this one, and I totally understand the points of those who don't want it and get all that. But boy, that's a tough one to consider there. I don't have the answer for that, but since we're talking before a motion, my preference would be that we stay all R2 or at least have no variance. But I do understand that a lot of things happening with this piece of property relative to prior Fulton County decisions and water issues and things like that. So out of respect for the extensive work that I know has been done between all the folks involved on both sides, including the developer and the residents, I think I'm willing to go along with what has come up, but it would be my preference to stay R2, but I understand the situation.
Any other questions or comments before we take a motion? Councilmember Diamond.
I just wanted to do one more quick thank you to everybody involved here, and I really want to thank Rich DiPolito for stepping back into community development. Had a death in the family last week, and he stepped in, and I know he lost a lot of hours of his week, as did everybody else involved, and I really appreciate it, so he will be making the motion.
Do we have a motion?
Put it on you.
Councilman Orleans.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment the developer and the neighborhoods. There were several neighborhoods involved in this issue. To get that many together and come to some pretty good agreements on different things, it's great. So I just want to compliment everybody that's been involved in this. And this site plan does look better than what was originally presented. Thank you.
Councilmember Diamond.
I'm sorry, I think in pieces, I have to say, when it comes to as to the crabapple registry issue, as I recall, the issue was that that neighborhood had one in and one out, and that was the only entrance and exit. But I do have in my notes from last time that we would like for transportation to take a look at the gravel in there and see if we might improve that aesthetically, or maybe that's Rec and Parks. I'm not sure who ended up with that. But that was, I think in this case, we've got two entrances and exits. In that case, there was absolutely no connectivity any other way. But I understand that aesthetically, we could probably look at it again.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move to approve RZ-201-301-339 and CV-201-301-341 with the 15 conditions as presented, with two changes. Item number 2, it should say vehicular or pedestrian access. And condition number 3, the owner-developer shall provide a contribution of $18.50 per platted lot to be paid at the recording of the final plat to the City of Roswell for future installation of left and right turn decel lanes, etc.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Before everyone leaves, our award-winning Fulton County Principal of the Year is here from Elkins Middle School, and that is Melinda Springman. Melinda, is Melinda here? Yes. Melinda, if you would come. Let's have a hand for Melinda. Melinda, I would want to welcome you to the microphone to say great things about Elkins Middle School.
Sure. Well, first of all, best laid plans and all that. We think we have everything planned, and there's some things we just don't have control over. So thank you very much for the willingness to recognize me tonight. As I was walking in, several people walking out said, they just said your name, they're talking about you, so thank you for that very much. For those of you who don't know me very well, I was actually a teacher at Elkins Point Middle School when it opened just over 12 years ago, and at that time I fell in love with the Roswell community, and over these 12 years to watch how Roswell has grown and changed and really embraced all of those changes has been a joy to watch. And I enjoy being back at Elkins Point Middle School now. We've done a lot of great things before I got there, and we're going to continue to do great things now. So once again, I thank you very much for the honor of recognizing my school's work as well as me. So thank you very much.
One more hand for Melinda Springer. We're going to take a 5-minute break because there are a lot of folks who probably want to go home. Everyone needs to take a seat. Where's Mr. Halsey?
I don't know where.
Where is Bob Halsey? He needs to be here for the next item. We're waiting on our city attorney to give us the background for why this is on the agenda. Mr. Halsey, if you would bring the council and the audience up to date on the status of the opening in the municipal court.
Yes, Mayor. Judge Hilliard resigned on August the 5th, which left a vacancy. Since that time, we've been having standby judges hold court. It appears to be working well. We haven't had any complaints, but it's not a long-term solution. The City of Roswell charter allows for the council to call a special election for judge within 60 days after a vacancy. Therefore, council has until October 4th, 2013 to call for a special election for the chief judge. Fulton County says, however, in order to get that on the November ballot, that decision has to be made by September 3rd, which is next Tuesday. State law, in contrast to the charter, this is OCGA section 3632-2, says notwithstanding any other provision of this chapter or any general or local act, which the charter is a local act, the governing authority of each municipal corporation within this state having a municipal court as provided by the act incorporating the municipal corporation or any amendments thereto is authorized to appoint a judge of such court. Any person appointed as a judge under this code section shall possess such qualifications and shall receive such compensation as shall be fixed by the governing authority of the municipal corporation. It says this code section shall not be construed to require the governing authority to appoint a judge, but such governing authority may appoint a judge if, acting in its sole discretion, the governing authority determines that such appointment would be in the best interest of the municipal corporation. Under this section of state law, regardless of the charter provisions mentioned before, mayor and council may immediately appoint a judge of the municipal court if they determine it to be the best interest of the city. If council decides to appoint a judge, they should also propose a local act to the state legislature amending the city's charter to allow for appointment of the municipal judge by mayor and council. This would bring Roswell's charter in line with the general laws of the state and with the charters of other cities throughout the state. Currently, Roswell is the last city in Georgia to have an elected municipal court judge. Council could also choose a blended path by making a call for a special election before October 4, 2013, scheduling the election for either March or May of 2014. Simultaneously, council could request that the legislature change the city's charter to allow for appointment of the chief judge. This would allow the city to continue to follow the charter up to and until such time as the legislature amends the charter to provide for appointment of the municipal chief judge. If the charter is amended and the council then appoints a chief judge, the special election would then be canceled as moot. If council wishes to follow this path, the city would be forced to continue to use standby judges until the charter is amended. These are the options before council tonight as it considers what it needs to do in regard to the vacancy created by the resignation of Judge Hilliard.
Let's begin by, does the council have any questions for Mr. Halsey? Councilmember Eigelhart.
I'm not sure if this is the right question for you, but the qualifying period for this election for November 5th ends on Friday.
Correct.
And so we haven't really put out a notice that this position is open in the sense that you must qualify for this by Friday.
Correct.
Correct? Right, I guess that's where I'm leading to. So if we have the election on November the 5th, is it, I think this is the judgment call, so I'm not sure how to ask this, is that actually sufficient to provide the notice to get people to be even able to qualify? What happens in that qualifying window now?
That's a policy decision for council to make. Given the parameters I have outlined, you still have the option to have a special election either in March of 2014 or in May in conjunction with the general primary if expense is part of the equation that council considers. So again, it's a policy decision council has to make.
I guess the question could be, if the council chose to call for a special election in November tonight, when would the qualifying period be?
It would be through Friday at 4:30.
They would have from tonight through Friday to qualify.
Correct.
Thank you.
So maybe if it's okay to make a comment, that concerns me that we would have that small a period with no notice really for that.
Yes, sir. Other questions for Mr. Halsey? Councilmember Diamond.
March or May, are there other elections that fall in either of those dates?
The general primary is now scheduled for, I think they're tentatively talking about May 20th for the general primary. The date in March is the next specified date by state law. That's the only time we can do it is at the March time or the general primary time in 2014.
I guess to Kent's point about notice and all, the turnout, unfortunately, on judges' races historically is so low that if that was all that was on the ballot, I'd be concerned we're essentially appointing a judge because there'd be that few people involved. And do we have, I had asked for some information, I think it's forthcoming this week, I guess, about how these other cities, I'm interested to know why every other city has moved to this and what that means for, it seems counterintuitive to me, but do you have any overall?
I think that the reason municipal court judges have been moving toward appointment by cities is that cities, unlike the state government and federal government, power is vested in only one branch of government, and that's mayor and council. There's a single governing body. With the state constitution and the federal constitution, you have the division of powers that Judge Hilliard was so fond of discussing. That does not apply here. Mayor and council are it. You have the question of judicial independence, which other cities have achieved by appointing a judge to a particular term. And during that term, the judge may be removed solely by mayor and council for cause or by action of the Judicial Qualifications Commission. So that gives the judge the independence and gives council the ability to have the judge be accountable. That has been the thinking, and there are over 600 cities in Georgia, and Roswell is the last to directly elect its municipal court judge.
And do we consider this, given our workload now, to be a full-time job still, or is it?
My understanding is it is still a full-time job.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Halsey? Councilmember Price.
I'm not sure if they're specifically for Mr. Halsey or just comments, but I'll make my comments, and if he has a response, I'm happy to hear it. Well, first of all, the end of Judge Hilliard's term normally would have been, the end of 2015?
Correct.
So the end of 2015. So if by our charter we're required, I believe, to have a special election according to our charter, which I believe we're still following, although the word notwithstanding, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure what notwithstanding means, but I know you read in detail the state law, but you didn't read in detail our charter. But our charter does ask us to call for a special election. So if we waited until May, would that be considered proper under our charter?
As long as the call is made within 60 days of the vacancy, so if council makes the call by October 4th, 2013, that would be proper.
So we could call it for May of 2014, and that would be fulfilling our charter's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also in this letter, is this letter privileged? I mean, this came from our attorney?
Yes, this is from David Davidson, the city attorney, to mayor and council.
The question was, is this privileged information, or is she free to read?
Am I free to?
No, you're free to read from it.
Okay. Well, in the letter dated August 19th from our city attorney, who's not here this evening, which seemed to me to be an advocacy position for appointing a judge as opposed to just giving us the facts. However, one of the things says that having part-time and standby judges is not a long-term solution. So what is our definition of long-term? Would long-term be prior to May of 2014?
I would say long-term would mean longer than a year. It's up to council to decide what long-term means or what it chooses to do.
But waiting until May to have an election would not violate this claim that we shouldn't consider standby judges in the long term.
I'm sorry, I couldn't follow the...
I couldn't either.
The question was, is Mr. Davidson said that long-term we need to have a resolution other than this temporarily appointing judges.
Yes, I think what Mr. Davidson was driving at is that council needs to set a decision by October 4th regarding whether it wishes to appoint or continue to elect judges. That would provide the solution. The charter allows council 60 days to call an election. State law dictates when that election can be, with the addition of the layer put on by Fulton County, which conducts city elections, and it imposes deadlines which we must meet, and if we don't, then we have to default to the next available election date, which is set by the state. That's why you get out to March. The state changed those parameters 2 or 3 years ago and specifically set the dates for special elections and restricted what cities could do.
Just to clarify, the city could either choose March or May as a date.
Correct.
Now, for another point of clarification, if it's March, there's a special charge for it, it would be the only thing on the ballot.
Correct. And
if it's May, as Councilmember Diamond pointed out, it's a
special question is what it qualifies.
Special question, but there's an election being held.
Correct.
Generally in conjunction with that.
Right, and usually the difference is about $150,000.
Which is significant. Other questions or comments before I entertain a motion? Yes, go ahead.
I've got a number of things. One, I just did a little research into what other states do, because I know that in Georgia, I think based on the state law, a number of municipalities have been going to or all but us now, since Alpharetta apparently has also gone to an appointed situation. But looking at other states, Alabama appoints judges, Texas has elected and appointed, Washington has a movement at the moment to get elected in all cities. Prior to the current status, it's just been the big cities, and they define big cities as greater than 25,000, and those cities have an elected judge, and the smaller cities have appointed judge. In Pennsylvania, they have elected judges, and I'm talking all about municipal level. I'm not talking about all levels, just the municipal level. Pennsylvania, they have elected judges, and they have 6-year terms. Wisconsin has elected judges. South Carolina has appointed. In most big cities, they're elected. In Ohio, they're elected, and they have a 6-year term. And also, there's an interesting distinction between municipal courts and traffic courts. Traffic courts have a greater tendency to have an appointed judge as opposed to municipal judges, which ours is, because they handle a number of other ordinance violations besides just traffic. So I think those are things to consider. And I think it's interesting to follow the battle that's going on in the state of Washington right now, because there are a lot of trust factors involved with the appointed system that they currently have, and there have been a number of judges have been replaced due to policy disagreements with their city, because the cities were concerned that they weren't boosting their own revenues and decreasing their costs, and that they were accused of, quote, meddling in court administration. So there's a movement there to have elected judges in all cities, as I said, not just the big ones, which they currently have, greater than 25,000 people. So I think that not just our peers are not just Georgia, I don't think. I think we need to look around the country and make sure that we're doing the right thing. Just because there's a tendency in Georgia to go away from elected officials, we might want to look at the practices elsewhere and what problems they run into when they get to that point. Again, our charter is pretty clear that we are to call for an election. If we think that there's an issue that we might want to go to an appointed system, I don't believe that it's our right to take that from the people who have had that ability to make that determination themselves. And I would propose that if there's any sort of resolution or any sort of movement in the direction of having an appointed judge, that we at least run that by the electorate for their approval. And we could certainly call for that as a question on this upcoming ballot, or we could do it at another point. But since we have until September 3rd to put any question on this fall's ballot, that's certainly something we can do that has not really been brought up before. So I would be in favor of that. I think Mr. DiPolito has the privilege of making the motion on this matter, since this falls in the realm of administration, but I would strongly recommend that we consider or discuss having a question on this fall's ballot as to whether or not we should change our current charter, which calls for elected judge in our municipal court, to an appointed system. And on the other hand, depending on how we want to fill that position in the interim, I would hope that we do not appoint someone as the judge, because I don't think that they should have an unfair advantage of being the incumbent at such time as we have the election. So I would hope that we could fill that on an interim basis and have that the designation of that person. So those are my comments for the moment.
Any other questions or comments before I entertain a motion? Councilmember DiPolito, do you have a motion?
I was not aware that I was supposed to have a motion.
Really?
Well, I think this does fall under admin, and Councilmember Price having reminded me of that, I think it's appropriate to give you the opportunity to make a motion if you wish.
If he's going to make a motion, can I make one comment then?
Yes, sir, you may make a comment.
Because I am open to an appointed judge, but I am very uncomfortable on making a decision just on really no notice to the public either. I'm not sure whether putting it on the ballot is the way to go, but I do think we need to have some more public input before we make that final decision. And maybe it is putting it on the ballot.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not comfortable with putting this on November. I don't think there's enough time for anyone who's really seriously considering being a judge here. It does not give them the time to, I think, be able to see if this is exactly what they want to do. So I am not in favor of putting it on the November. I also think I have the floor. I have the floor, ma'am.
You do, but let me clarify that.
Just once she has an opportunity to close, then you'll have an opportunity to respond.
I'm assuming, Mr. Halsey, that we could vote tonight to put the election on November.
You can.
Thank you. And I don't think it's enough time tonight, because it only gives somebody 4 days to be able to qualify. So my thing, and I also would like to have some more information about the pros and cons of appointed versus elected, and see which way I would like to go, because I'm not married to one way or the other, but I still like to see all the information. As for it being on the ballot for a question, I'm not really gung-ho about that, but I have no problems doing some type of special hearings or public hearings on that.
Councilmember Price, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, only that we have to have the question to Fulton County by September 3rd. So there's no way we could, have a qualifying period, advertise it, et cetera, to get it to Fulton County by September 3rd. So there really is no way to have an election of distinguishing between candidates, among candidates by November, is my understanding.
Councilmember Orleans.
Mr. Mayor, can I have?
Yeah, it's really, it's not practical.
No,
Not
it's impossible.
fair.
I think y'all are
Basically
arguing over
impossible,
a point which may not be important to decide if it becomes, if there is a motion to call the election. Mr. Halsey can answer that further, but let's not, Mr. Orleans.
I also think we need some time to look over the pros and cons of elected versus appointed, and also I think we need to analyze whether we need a full-time position no matter what we do versus a part-time position. So I think we need to get some more information together to review this whole issue. Thank you.
Any other comments before we entertain a motion? Mr. DiPolito, I'm going to give you the first shot at this motion if you wish it, or you can defer. You can pass on that, because I know you weren't prepared.
Well, if one of my colleagues is prepared with a motion, I'd be happy to defer it, otherwise, or refer it to them.
I see Councilmember Wynn's hand is up.
I have no problem doing a motion. My motion would be to defer this until September 23rd. First, give enough time to get the information that we need. And I would do it to the 11th, but that's the radio tower, and I don't want to clog it up on that one.
So just to be clear what we're deferring, this is the consideration of, do we call a special election under the charter, or do we exercise the right under the state law to make an appointment, or do we go some other route?
Exactly. Since we have until October 4 to make that decision, I think September 23 should give us plenty of time to get all the information and disseminate that information.
We have a motion to defer this issue until September 23rd council meeting. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilman Orleans. Further discussion of the motion to defer. I'll hear from the audience after I hear from the council. Councilmember Price.
Yeah, the only reservation I have about that motion is that we give up any opportunity to put anything on the ballot this fall. And I know we cannot put individual people on the ballot this fall, but we could pose the question of an elected versus an appointed judge to the people directly, since that would be a right we would be essentially removing from them should we at some point go to an appointed position, which is not to say that we would do that in any case, but I'm just saying that if we wanted to determine that prior to October 4th,
that would be the subject of a different motion, which I would entertain after we vote on the motion to defer. It would not be part of a motion to defer.
So for that
on the motion to defer, any further comments? Yes.
A related question to that, if we wanted to put a question on the ballot, we need to decide that by September 3rd, is that correct?
Mr. Halsey.
You have to get it to Fulton County by September 3rd.
By September 3rd. And then we would need to call for an election, a special election by October 5th.
October 4th.
October 4th, okay. So if we place a question on the ballot, we won't get the results until November. So would we call for a special election on October 4th and then potentially cancel that? I'm trying to figure out logistically, how does all this work?
Let's do this, Councilman DiPolito, because I have a small attention span. You've got a lot of ifs. The first question is do we defer? The question of do we place a special question on the ballot we can take up immediately following this.
Well, actually, that plays into do we defer? Because it depends on when we defer to.
Well, the vote is being deferred until September 23rd. It would be too late to put it on the calendar then. If you were going to put it on the calendar, Mr. Halsey, it would be September...
If you're going to put a special question on the ballot, the language has to be to Fulton County by September 3rd.
So
which
I'm
would
saying,
really mean Friday.
We've got to make the decision tonight where we're going to put that on the calendar. It's separate from the motion to defer.
Mr. Mayor, it's really not separate because Fulton County and the state may determine that it's moot because you've already got the option to elect or not elect. If you defer, you're just deferring the decision of when a special election is going to be. You maintain all of your options. You can appoint under state law.
No, but here was the question. The question would be, Councilmember Price is suggesting we put on the ballot the question to the public would, it'd be in essence, it's not a referendum, but can we put on, let's ask that question. Can we put on the ballot, do you wish to elect the judge or not?
I'm certain the council can do that. We're going to have to be a little more detailed because...
I understand, but I'm saying that question, we would have to, if we're going to put that on the ballot for November, we have to make the decision by September 3rd.
By this Friday, it has to be to them by September 3rd.
By this Friday. Again, I see that's a separate question. They are related, but the motion to defer can go forward without resolving the question of putting it on the special question.
We would have to hammer out the language.
Tonight,
correct.
I don't want to try to hammer that out before I first get past to vote on this motion to defer.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Certainly.
All right, just bear with me for a minute. If we put the question on the ballot by September 3rd, we would have to call for a special election. With that question on the ballot, we would still have to call for a special election by October 4th, just to retain that right to hold a special election. Is that correct?
No,
Yes.
So by law,
if we were meeting our charter, we would have to take action within 60 days to meet the charter. We have to call that question.
So we would call for a special election. We would then, at the general election on November 5th, we would hear from the public about what they would like for us to do.
Correct.
If they say that they would like for us to hold an election, then we're good, and we hold that election in May, as we've discussed. If they say they're okay with us appointing it, then do we have the ability to cancel the special election?
Yes, because in your call for the special election, you can say, if necessary.
Okay. So we really have nothing to lose by going ahead and putting a question on the ballot.
As long as it's non-binding.
You have to. This is a complicated question, and it was is when you say nothing to lose. It's the question: is this a question for council to decide, or is this a question in which there's going to be a education of the public in getting all the issues? Because as y'all have noted, it's not a simple yes or no question. There are pros and cons, and it's not a matter of should you have the right to vote or not. Everyone has the right to vote, and it is a complicated question, a lot of things to factor. So what I'm asking for right now, although this may influence your decision, is there is a motion and a second to defer. We can take up the question of, do we put something on the ballot, and what is it next, or at a later time? I think I want to take a look at what else is on the agenda, because this could take a while.
What are we deferring?
So we have a motion to defer. I want to hear any other discussion of the motion to defer. Does anyone in the audience have any comments on the motion to defer? Yes, sir, come forward. I will not be talking about the motion of whether we should appoint or not appoint a judge. We're going to be talking about, if you'll limit your comments on the motion to defer.
Leaf-elect Martin's Landing. I'd like to bring all your attention to your own charter. You don't need to defer to the state to an appoint. It's in your own charter. Under Section 7.60, subsection 2, it states the City Council may at any time during an absence of the Chief Judge of the Municipal Court appoint a judge pro tempore who shall serve during such absence or period of time. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to comment on or have any questions regarding the motion to defer? Any further discussion by council?
What, can you state the motion, please?
The motion is to defer the question of the special, do we call a special called election or other options until the council meeting on the September 23rd, Mr. Halsey? Was that the date?
No, October 4th.
No, September 23rd.
Oh,
The
September
meeting.
23rd, correct.
The 23rd, we would defer this issue, which we've been discussing right now. Not the question of on the ballot, but do you appoint? Do you call a special election? When do you call the special election? Do you have to go to the legislature? All those issues would be deferred until the 23rd. And the council has requested more information to help them make that decision. That's the motion. Motion to defer. We already have a
It's
second.
already been...
Any further discussion or questions before I call for a vote? Councilmember Diamond.
And this may be a Michael question about how we go about, or a Julie question, how we go about getting the information to the public either way. I mean, is there a timeline that generally it takes to...
For which?
Yeah. Well, either way, we need to have the public discussion of appointed versus elected. So I guess the question is, can we do that in the short term, or if we make it a ballot question, I'm not sure how we get that. I know if we do it the 23rd, we have public hearings, we get the word out, we have the discussion. My guess is the media has already started on this. If not, we're going to have to do an education process, and I'm not clear how that's going to work.
It is not clear at this moment how that would work.
That doesn't help me.
Chair.
But I don't want to get into the question of how you're going to educate until I first find out. Y'all are jumping ahead to the second point, the second motion, which hasn't even been made yet. The question is a motion to defer. Let's not discuss the special call vote, because until you first decide that this motion to defer. We have a motion and a second. Councilman Orleans.
I think to answer Councilman Diamond's question is, by the 23rd, we could still call for a special election in May of next year and still go through public hearings and still gather information and then follow up with having that election. Or if the decision is to go to an appointment, then we would not follow through on the election and make a decision elsewhere.
The motion right now is a motion to defer the question of, do we call a special call election? That's all it is. We have a motion and a second to defer that question until September 23rd. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's Councilman Orleans, Eigelhart, Wynn, DiPolito, and Diamond. All opposed. Councilmember Price. So we now, if someone wishes to make a motion to put a question on the ballot, Mr. Halsey, is this? Do they have time to do that if we make this, hammer out something tonight?
I would think so. I will have to check tomorrow on the special question part, but I believe we will be in time if we have the language and it's adequate by state law.
Councilman Eigelhart.
I would suggest, given our history, we not try and hammer out something tonight to get language that's going to go to something that will decide something, since we couldn't even do it just right now. We do have a committee meeting on Wednesday, and I would suggest that we look at having a special call either before or after that meeting so that we can then have at least a day to try and come up with that.
Just for the record, I have be at my niece's wedding out of town, leaving Wednesday, and so I'd not be able to take part in that vote, but maybe that gives me an excuse. So that don't feel bad about it. I just will not be there. So, Councilmember Price.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me, but I had scribbled out a draft motion to that effect at home, and really I don't think it would be that elaborate. Simply stating that according to the Charter of Roswell, our current system is to have an elected judge, and then the question would be, do you favor retaining the system or going to a system of an appointed judge? And that's basically it. And but it would have to be very carefully worded, which we could hone by Wednesday, that doesn't lead anybody to any particular conclusion, because it needs to just simply state what we have now, and would you wish to change it to a different system? Because I think that's what's being proposed to us, and I know Mr. Fleck said we have that right now, and yes, we do in the temporary sense, but in the long-term sense, our charter says that we elect. So that's the question in the future, is do we change our charter to go to an appointed system or retain the current charter which says we elect?
Right. Here's what I'm hearing, is the council may not be prepared to make a decision tonight, but there's a wish of some council members for a special call meeting to consider this between now and Friday. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Go for it, Kent.
Well, since we are already getting together on Wednesday, I would make a motion that we consider whether or not we put a special question on the November 5th ballot in a special called meeting at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 28th.
8 a.m. Wednesday the 28th, special call meeting to discuss ballot question regarding election or appointment of a judge.
Second.
Motion and a second. Yes, Councilmember Price.
Seeing as we have a meeting already called at that time, is this going to precede that meeting or follow that meeting?
The special call meeting would be at 8 a.m. Y'all could decide to, right now it's to be at 8 a.m. If you wish to make a motion to amend it to be at a later time, I'd entertain a motion to amend.
If I can, I'm saying 8 because if people do want to come to that, then they know when it is. If we put it after the committee meeting, nobody can tell what time that is.
I understand. Right now, the motion is to hear this at 8 a.m. It's room... Well, if it's a special call council meeting, it might be in this dais. I think I'd want to hear from staff where to best call that, but this is, you'd want to have it on the record.
Mr. Mayor, I think it needs to be after 8 a.m. because we must give 24 hours notice, and we're not going to be able to give the newspapers proper notice tonight. So we'd send it out first thing in the morning, so it should be at least 8:30 or later. I would suggest that the committee meeting is already scheduled for 8 o'clock. You could have a special called meeting for 9 or 10 and simply adjourn the committee meeting, hold the special called meeting, and then go back to committee.
Councilman Eichelhardt, do you wish to amend your motion?
Yes, I do. Does 9 work?
Yes.
Because if there are people that want to come, I'd like to get it done for them as soon as possible and move on. But yes, I would make that the motion. 9 o'clock.
Councilmember DiPolito, do you concur?
Yes, I do.
So the motion is to have a special call meeting at 9 o'clock to consider the issue of placing a question on the ballot. Councilmember Diamond.
Could we have a couple of draft options from legal on Wednesday?
Many as you want.
I just, us writing legal
Yes.
stuff doesn't go well, so if you could give us some starting places, that would be helpful.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilman Orleans.
As you, Mayor, I have some conflicts for Wednesday morning as well, so I may not be here. But my one hesitation on the ballot question is, getting more than just a yes or no, but getting information out to the public and having some public hearings, and having time to do that. Now, I guess we could still do it in complement the ballot question, but then if feedback and changes and so forth, then, we said we're going against the ballot question. So, it's, I have some conflicting thoughts about this the process and how to do it and how to get public input on it.
Well, I'm not going to open it up for public discussion tonight because we're going to have a special call meeting in which we will have specific points. All we're talking about tonight is is, are we going to continue this discussion? And given that we continue discussion, I'm not going to open up for public comment. But I do want to hear from all the council's comments before we vote on bringing this to a special call meeting. Councilmember Price.
I think that the concern that the public can't figure it out by the first Tuesday in November is a little spurious. After all, we're in the middle of qualifying this week, and we have no idea who may step up to run for city council. We have no idea who may step up to run for mayor, but presumably between now and November, I think the electorate or those who choose to vote on that day will decide how they want to vote. So I think they could figure this issue out as well. And it's already been in the news, and I think it will be. And I know the Women's Club is putting on a forum. There'll be plenty of opportunities for people to hear the merits one way or the other and to discuss it in groups and I think be educated by November.
The subject is, do we have a special call meeting Wednesday at 9 a.m.? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands.
Point of order, Mayor?
No, sir, you're not being recognized. Mr. Fleck, you are not recognized. If you wish to speak, you're going to have to leave this room. Mr. Fleck, do you wish to leave this room? Escort Mr. Fleck outside. Thank you, Mr. Fleck. Are you willing to remain quiet? Are you willing to remain quiet? You can remain in the room if you'll sit there quietly. Thank you, sir. We have I've forgotten what the vote was. All right. This is a motion to have a special, we had a motion and a second, motion by Councilman Eichelhart, second by Councilmember DiPolito, wasn't it? To have a special call meeting on the 23rd, no, on this coming Wednesday, which is, what date is that? The 28th at 9 a.m. to consider a ballot question regarding election or appointment of the judge. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is Councilmember Orleans, Price. Eichel, that's unanimous. So I encourage everyone who did not get a chance to speak tonight on that subject. We will have a full discussion that night. I didn't want to drag this meeting out because that's the time for the discussion, is when there is the ballot question is proposed, and I encourage you all to come back. Mr. DiPolito, you may continue with your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a contract with the Jacobs Group to provide services for the municipal court services reorganization plan in an amount not to exceed $405,609 and amendments to the FY 2014 approved budget and position control. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. This item has been discussed in committee for a reorganization plan for the court services functions that we have here in the city. We would be going from 16 and a half full-time equivalent positions to 13 and a half full-time equivalent positions. Jacobs Engineering Group would be providing the staffing for 4.5 or 4 full-time and 1 part-time position for the court services functions themselves. There will be 4 marshals that are currently in that division that will remain with the city but be moved over to the police department, be under that jurisdiction, and probation would remain within the city employment. We have 2 probation officers right now. We would add a 3rd senior probation officer to that mix so that we would have a total of 3 in that department. The solicitor, who is an employee with the city now, would remain a city employee at this time, so we would end up, as I said, with the 16 and a half positions, and the request would be to approve Jacobs Engineering Group to provide the services for an amount not to exceed $405,609.
Does the council have any questions? That's awful quiet for this council. Any comments from council before I open it up for public comment? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had concerns about just not having enough information on Jacobs Engineering Group. They are a large publicly traded company, very well respected in their field, which is, to my understanding, primarily engineering. So I would like to receive more information on the Jacobs Group and their qualifications to fill this role prior to moving forward. So I'm going to be recommending a deferral.
I am not going to be here for that special call meeting. I would request you defer it until the next regular council meeting. Is that suitable?
Yes.
The recommendation would probably be the 23rd. I think the 11th agenda is fairly well full. If we're going to defer from tonight, the 23rd is probably a much better night.
So I'd recommend deferral to the 23rd.
The motion to defer to the 23rd. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wynn. Councilmember Diamond. Motion. All right. Is anyone audience heard on the motion to defer? We're not discussing the merits. Anyone have a concern about a deferral? Seeing no hands up, we're going to close the public hearing. Further comments from council. Councilmember Price.
I know we've had a lot of changes, with our judge resigning, and it's my understanding that there have already been some changes in the court services. So does deferring that put us in a bind, or does it put some people in limbo, or what is the merits or problems with not discussing this or taking action inside of a month?
If you're asking for my opinion on that, I think it puts the division in limbo. We've got employees right now that have been given information that we're going to be making some changes. Certainly we're going from 16 and a half employees to 13 and a half positions. That's 3 positions that we won't have in the future, and there's some, a lot of concern out there as to what that might mean to the current employees. From my standpoint, I think we should be moving, as rapidly as we can for their sake, so that they know what's going on and so that I can go to them and let them know where we're moving to. Otherwise, it's just another month. I certainly understand Councilmember DiPolito. We've been in some contact today, and I know there's some questions now that he has. I think I can clear those up. But I feel bad to leave it open for another month when we've already made the announcement that we're going to be making some change. So that's my opinion.
Staff has made the announcement that they are recommending a change.
Correct. We have not.
The council has not made the decision to make the change.
Thank you. That's correct.
But the employees are in limbo because they don't know what the council is going to do.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with you. In justice to the employees, the sooner this council makes a decision, the better to know where they're going.
Yes, sir.
But just for the record, no decision has been made yet.
Correct.
So, just ask for clarification. Have any employees received termination notices?
No, ma'am. Absolutely not. There is no decision been made from an organizational standpoint until you all make the decision for the reorganization that I have talked to you about. Nothing will be done until that time.
Okay, so that's just a rumor that occurred?
Absolutely, right. That's a rumor. There is nobody been in any shape, form, or fashion changed from today or any other day in regards to this reorg, nor would they be. That would be highly inappropriate. Highly.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a great idea. I really like it. I think this is where we have to go. But if there's some council members that are not comfortable tonight, I will support the deferrals. But right now, if we were voting, I would vote to approve this.
Councilmember Eichelhardt.
I agree that may be some limbo here for a month, but the most difficult decisions we make are dealing with individual employees, and it certainly impacts their lives. I understand that. But I think you'd rather be in limbo for a month than have a best decision as opposed to having a decision right now that may or may not work. I understand we've been given a lot of information, and because it is such a major decision, I think we owe it to everyone to make sure we have that full information. So sorry to those who may have to wait another month, but I think ultimately that's for the best decision.
Any further discussion before we take a vote? This is a motion to defer the... I already asked for public comment on the motion to defer, recognizing this isn't we're not making a decision, just a motion to defer. Until the date, Mr. Holzer? The 20, motion to defer the question of outsourcing the clerk's work in the courts to the 23rd. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The next item is a resolution appointing standby judges for the City of Roswell Municipal Court. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. It is, in fact, your authority to be able to appoint standby judges in the time of a vacancy in the office. We would like to have requesting a resolution be passed tonight with a list of standby judges to be chosen from, so that as need be, we can have more than just one in case there are scheduling issues along the way. Councilmember Price had asked earlier how long it would be appropriate for this to go on. I think long enough to get in an election when that time comes. In my discussions with David Davidson on the appropriateness of having standby judges, it's not a long-term solution, and we don't want it to be this way a year from now. However, in moving forward with making sure that we do the right thing on the call for the judge, we can use the standby judges in the meantime. So there is a list of judges in the resolution. I'll read those out. Richard Hicks, Barry Zimmerman, Brian Hansford, Don Schaefer, Mazzy Mazloom, and I'm sorry if I messed that one up, and Phyllis Collins would be requested for approval for standby judges on a resolution from you all.
Council have any questions? Councilmember Price.
Are there any names of any other judges who have served since Judge Hilliard resigned that are not on this list?
Yes.
Judge Thompson served one day, but we determined that he is not eligible because currently he is not a judge anywhere. He retired. He's not a senior judge, and therefore he was not eligible to be appointed. And all of these judges are eligible to be appointed under our charter.
And that's the only one that I knew of.
Does that mean he cannot serve any longer?
He could not sit on ours unless he's an active judge or a senior judge.
So by what authority did he serve as our judge as an interim?
According to Robbie Barkley, it was pursuant to Judge Hilliard's appointment, which the charter does not give him.
And I don't have the charter at my fingertips here, but I'll take that as correct. Are there any others that have served, or this will prohibit anybody else because we don't have a senior judge to? Well, you're saying he can't do it.
It would not prohibit anyone else, but it would require another vote of council to approve the nomination. We've got a slate we're approving. You can add to that later. You can subtract this from this one later. We have no one else on the agenda.
We're looking for your approval to be able to call people on a day-in, day-out basis, to be able to get them to come in and sit. Sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes it's very difficult, depending on what their court schedules are and what ours are. And sometimes we can go through a list fairly quickly and not get anybody. We don't want to take it upon ourselves to start calling individuals that you all have not approved, which is why we're putting a list before you today.
But we've never done this before.
We've had a judge that has done that before.
But apparently we're saying that he didn't approve the proper people? Is that what we're saying?
No, we're saying the judge has now resigned and he's no longer available to make appointments.
And you all need to do that.
Okay. Once he resigned, he was not in a position to name people, and now
Correct.
That's why it's come to this council.
So if we wanted to expand the list, how hard would that be?
It would take a motion and a second and a vote of council, and they would have to be qualified under the terms of the charter.
And do we know of any other interested people?
I do not.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion? The question by Councilmember DePolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fisher, is this the list that we currently have for standby judges that our prior judge would have called upon?
Yes. These are all people that have been in our courts even while our prior judge was here.
Okay. All right, thank you. I move to approve.
Motion to approve the list of judges. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council?
Can I make one comment for
Yes, sir.
clarification? I'm not sure Phyllis Collins was here with our previous judge in the past, but she has served already in the interim and was very well received, so she's on the list also. But I'm not sure if she was here when Judge Hilliard was here.
Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their... Yes. Yes, sir. Come forward. Give us your name and address.
I'm Richard Hicks, 1210 Falstaff Drive, Roswell. I just wanted to give you a name to add to the list. Roy Roberts, who was a judge in Alpharetta for many years. He's a magistrate. He still has his municipal qualifications, goes to school, so he's a good one to add. He's available.
My suggestion would be is once, and I know Judge Roy, but I'd like to make sure that Mike Fisher contacts him first, and if Mike can bring this back to the next council meeting and add into the list, so we'll make sure we always have qualified judges. So I'd suggest that we hold off on that until staff gets a chance to contact him.
Made that
But
note.
I concur with your recommendation. So we have a motion and a second to nominate this list. We can add to it later. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's unanimous.
Next item is approval of a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend Chapter 18 outdoor lighting. This is the first reading.
I'm going to take a break. 5 minutes. No, but the opinion should lock it.
I'll see you all later. Nice to meet you. Take care. If you need me, just yell. Oh, it will. I will.
Thanks, we appreciate it. We needed 280.
Rich, it's back with you.
Mr. Mayor, I think I already called the item, but I will recall it. Approval of a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to amend Chapter 18 outdoor lighting. This is the first reading. Mr. Fisher.
Correct. This is the first reading. This item we talked about in committee the very next day. It went on over to the Planning Commission for initiation, if you would. They, of course, deferred it because they had just received the information, but they will have it again before it comes back for the second reading. So we're trying to get this in a time crunch. We have to have it in by the end of September so that we can include it in our application for the ARC Gold community. And what this is an outdoor lighting ordinance, if you would, that takes the one that we have, which is fairly broad, kind of a real broad scope, and it defines things a little bit more. What you have in your packet tonight is the actual ordinance that we will be using as the first section, the clean ordinance, and then the second part that you'll have in your packet is a red line version that has the old ordinance in there next to the associated section that it would have taken out. So everything that's in the old ordinance is removed and everything in the new ordinance is put in. The new ordinance just has a little more detail and definition than what the old one had. We're asking for you to approve this ordinance in the first reading tonight, or have the first reading, so that we can continue to move it forward to try to enhance our nighttime environment that we have here in the city, and part of that is the spillover of light that's going up into the air for absolutely no good. Instead of lighting objects in areas, it's lighting the sky, and we're trying to avoid that. And that's what we're here for tonight, and that happens to also play along well with our ARC Green Communities application that we're putting forth.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Fisher, I'm really confused by what we're looking at. We have some red strikeouts, and what you're saying is the sum total of those red areas that were struck out was the entire ordinance that we had before?
Correct. Those the red strikeouts are the old ordinance embedded in this new ordinance, so you can see what was taken out. But it is the entire old ordinance. It's about a page and a half.
So our old ordinance started at section 18.2.5?
No, 18.2.1. They're placed in the new ordinance next to the area that they corresponded with, not necessarily in order. So if you'll notice, 18.2.5, type of lighting that is struck out corresponds with letter C in the new ordinance right above that talks about the type of lighting that is prohibited. So one ordinance says what you're allowed to have, one ordinance says what you're not allowed to have. So I put those two together. At the bottom of that page, if you'll notice another example, 18.2.1 of the old ordinance talked about cutoff fixtures. 18.2.4 letter A in the new ordinance talks about cutoff fixtures. So I just placed the old ordinance items next to the corresponding new ordinance item so that you can see those are the items that are the same. The items that are in white are new details in the new ordinance that did not transfer over from the old ordinance.
Other questions? Councilmember Orleans.
That's good, Michael, because I'm trying to figure out how you were laying this out and to follow it, so I appreciate that little explanation, and it totally makes sense. My one question now, and go back to read it, the main issue we had on some lighting and still keeping it focused down was security lighting, and
Correct.
It came up a lot with car dealers. Is that still being handled here?
Those are
work for both and control the lighting, but still allow them the security.
Correct.
And have you gotten any input from them, or let them know that we're doing this?
In the new ordinance, section 18.2.3, if you look on the second page of the new ordinance, you will see some exempt lighting. One of those lightings that's exempt is security lighting. We certainly don't ever want to get involved with telling people how to do their security lighting only to have something happen and they blame us for not having security lighting. So that is an exempt item. You're correct about that. There are some exemptions.
Thank you.
Question. Go ahead. The question. Existing fixtures, are they grandfathered?
They are grandfathered in as long as there's no major changes to the item, to the area. If there's more than a 50% change to a particular area, they need to bring all the lights up to standard. If it's less than a 50% change in an area...
50% by area, 50% by price?
By area.
So, give me an example.
Brad, can you help with an example of that?
I'm trying to figure 50% of what?
I will tell you right here. Building additions or modifications of 50% or more in terms of the additional dwelling. So if the dwelling is being changed or added to by more than 50%, if you have a storefront or a store and you're going to add more than 50% to that building, then you need to be able to bring all of your lights up to code. That would be a
So it's
major change.
repaving your parking or just
No.
cosmetics?
No,
isn't
that
gonna
would be
trigger it?
considered a minor change, and any new lighting that would go in with that plan would need to be the new code, but the old stuff you don't have to change.
So
That's just a minor
So
addition.
it'd be a major
Correct.
change in
Over
the
50%.
commercial or residential
Correct.
to trigger this. That was my question. Other questions? Councilmember Diamond.
How is it that we're doing this separate from the UDC? Is that, how did this come up?
It's a
in
timing
advance
issue.
of that?
It's a timing issue. We knew that we were going to be doing some lighting plans. The UDC actually does include probably most of what we're doing here, as far as being able to get lighting plans now have to be permitted and have to be approved in advance. So what we're doing this for is because it would fit nicely into our application for our goal community. The UDC is not ready yet, so this will be, goes hand in hand with what we're doing in the UDC.
So these changes are consistent with what the changes will be in the UDC?
Yes. Well, if this is adopted, we will just roll it into the...
It just rolls in. It's not going to change things. No, there won't be another change after this.
No.
Other questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Looking at the charts, because it's section, not sure what section, 18.2.4, we have maximum foot candles at property lines, and those are 1, 1.5, and 1.5. And then if you look at the old regulations, they're 0.5, 1, and 1.5. So it actually looks like we're increasing the maximum foot candles. Is that correct?
Correct. Because if you think about the direction that they can do with lighting today, it's much better how they can direct the light. Because what we're looking for is a spillover. That's what we're trying to control. That's what we're trying to maintain.
Okay, so this is attempting to control glare and spillover, but
Correct.
It doesn't reduce the amount of foot candles?
Correct. It doesn't have to anymore with the technology and the new type of fixtures that are out there.
Okay, and the second half of that chart was struck, but it looks like it's the same.
Yes.
So that actually is not a change.
It looks like all of them
From
are the same.
off
Yes.
street parking lots down
That's
to
correct.
light industrial areas. So in your opinion, what are the keys, what are the key components to this ordinance? What is it
I think the key...
actually accomplishing?
The key, what's it accomplishing? It's actually being a little more descriptive in the different types of lighting and what we really can't use in the old ordinance. It was very broad, and there was a couple of lights you can use, but it did not get into specialty lighting, which had to do with, I think we talked about this a little bit in committee, some of the search-type lighting that we have, some of the real intense beam lights that people use for special occasions that goes up, and all they are is glare in the night vision. I think that's a big deal to be able to define what kind of lights we shouldn't be using in the city. The other area is the special uses. They're much more defined than they were before, and how they can be used. Sports lighting obviously is a very special use. It talks about gas station, service station lighting, in the downlighting that they have to have and how those can be mounted. I think it brings a lot of the old ordinance up to more of the modern standards with the details listed.
Are we going to bring this to committee again?
We'll bring it back for a second reading here on September 23rd.
Are we going to have a committee meeting before then?
Yes, we will.
So can we put this on the committee agenda before, but
We sure
I know
can.
council has a lot of questions.
Sure, we can talk about it some more at the next committee, absolutely. And then the second reading will be after the next planning commission meeting, so any comments that they have, y'all will be privileged to those also.
Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fisher, you said, you know, we're actually increasing the foot candles because of the new technology.
In some instances, yes, ma'am.
Okay, is there something in here, and I'm not a lighting expert, so I don't know if this is feasible or if it can happen, but let's say I have the old type lighting, and we're changing the foot candles. Can I now use this table to put more foot candles in a dated street light or a parking light?
No, not directly. If you change out the type of lighting that you have from an older style light from the old regulations to a new one, you have to have that approved first.
Okay, but I'm
So
talking about...
it could raise the foot candles as long as the new light directs that light to where it needs to go.
No, okay, I'm not making myself clear. An existing parking light pole
Yes.
that's old,
Yes.
the old technology. Is this going to allow me to, let's just take a property abutting an office or institutional with one foot candle. It's now going to 11. Can I, under this ordinance, as you know, with the changes, can I go to the existing parking light pole, take out the 1.0 foot candle light and put in an 11? Or does the technology allow that?
No, you cannot, because it has to do with the type of head that you have in the reflector and what that pattern of light is. So if you have an old light up there, you can only replace it with an old style light with a lower foot candle if you're just replacing that one. If you change the light head, you can change it to the new style head that directs the light at a certain pattern and gives you a higher foot candle.
Okay, I don't know if we're talking apples and oranges here.
Councilmember Wynn, I think what he's saying is,
you can't put a
just
brighter
change the
bulb
light
in-
bulb, you also have to change the fixture.
You can't put a-
But
you
is
can't
it
put a-
possible, to put in a higher foot candle light in an existing...
Probably not.
Oh, technology.
The
That's
head
what I want to make
probably
sure.
won't even take that type of a bulb.
Okay,
Could we do this?
I just want to make sure.
Could we do this, just make it clear, if it's not expressed, that you have to go to the new fixtures if you increase the
It's
foot?
expressed.
That is expressed, so they cannot
Anything-
change the foot candle without the new fixture.
Anything new goes to a new fixture. The only difference is, if depending on how big of a project, do you change them all, or do you just change the ones that you're working on?
Councilmember Wynn, does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I'm still thinking if they can do it, how are we going to know until somebody starts complaining about the, the bleed?
That's
But
the case regardless.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, it answers my question. I appreciate it.
Other questions? Mr. Halsey, would you read the ordinance? One question. Mr. DiPolito.
Thank you. I see in here where it talks about minor additions of less than 50%.
Correct.
So that requires an inventory and a site plan. Where does it discuss what Councilmember Wynn was talking about any new lighting?
Any new lighting on the site shall meet the requirements of this ordinance with regard to shield and lamp type. It's the very last sentence. And that's in a minor or...
So that is not
It's
part of
anything
this.
less than 50%.
But the beginning of this is talking about any additions or modifications
Of less than
Of less than
50%. So that's anything that is small. If you change out that light, it has to be to a new light standard.
All right, so for anything that is larger than 50%,
You have to change everything on that piece of property.
Does that say that?
and so how is that 50%? It's 50% of what?
It can be interpreted several different ways. It's in that 18.2.3. 50% can be in terms of the additional dwelling units, the gross floor area, or the parking spaces, either with the single addition or with the cumulative changes subsequent to the effective date of this provision. So it depends on what you're looking at. If it's just the building, you can look at the area of the dwelling, you can look at the square foot of the dwelling. If it's a parking area, you can look at the size and the number of the parking spaces.
So if I change the floor,
gross floor area.
So modification, so if you did a facelift to a building that was more than 50% of the gross floor area?
Correct. Then it's a minor change, and if you do any lights, the lights have to be to the new standard.
But if you did, if you have a building, you did a facelift on it, you'd have to change your parking lot lights too?
No, not if you don't change more than 50% of whatever you're doing.
That's what I'm saying. If you have a building
And you change more than 50%.
and say you put a new skin on the building, but the parking lot lighting is fine.
Correct.
You would have to replace that lighting anyway, just because you reskin the building.
No. Not unless you change the building by more than 50% on the outside or the total square foot area. Am I saying that right, Brian?
Well, it says additions or modifications, so I guess that's my question, is what's considered a modification?
My interpretation of that is if you have any kind, if you add to it, if you make a modification of more than 50% or...
You're talking about gross leasable area.
Yeah, of the area, not just the
Well,
skin.
I agree with additions, but modifications is kind of a broad...
Brad, if you could look into clarifying that language to make sure Mr. Lippolito's concern is addressed, just make sure that it's defined.
And my concern is we're trying to encourage redevelopment, and if you have a site that is otherwise in good condition and has relatively new lighting, that's okay. And then you reskin a building, it seems a shame to require somebody to update all the lighting when they may really not need to.
Right, unless part of what we're doing here, though, is we're also asking that they update the lighting because there is a lot of spillover at night for a lot of glare and a lot of lighting.
We'll address Councilmember Dippolito's concern. I think it's just a matter of tightening it up.
Okay.
Making it clear that it has to be the leasable area, area of the parking lot's got to be increased by 50% for whether that's, you call it a modification or
right.
addition. Councilman Dippolito, does that, we'll work forward then. If y'all could have those changes before the committee meeting for council's review, it would be helpful. Other questions or comments? Mr. Halsey, would you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance to amend Chapter 18 Outdoor Lighting of the Roswell Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 18 Outdoor Lighting of the Zoning Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, hereby amended by deleting Chapter 8.2. I think that may be a typo, 18.2 Outdoor Lighting Regulations in its entirety and substituting, therefore, a new Chapter 18.2 Outdoor Lighting Regulations to read as follows. The purpose and intent of this ordinance is to provide a regulatory strategy for outdoor lighting that will permit reasonable uses of outdoor lighting for nighttime safety, utility, security, productivity, enjoyment, and commerce, curtail and reverse the degradation of the nighttime visual environment and the night sky, preserve the dark night sky for astronomy, minimize glare, obtrusive light, and artificial sky glow by limiting outdoor lighting that is misdirected, excessive, or unnecessary, conserve energy and resources to the greatest extent possible, and help to protect the natural environment from the damaging effects of night lighting from man-made sources. The remainder of the ordinance is incorporated herein by reference.
Do we have a motion to approve the first reading?
I have concerns about this ordinance, but for purposes of moving it along, I will make a motion to approve the first reading.
Motion to approve the first reading by Councilmember Dippolito with the understanding we're going to be working on it. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Eichelhardt. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. At this time, I'd like to call upon Councilman Orleans to call on the section involving operational review of historic homes, because I have presumed there's some folks who want to go home tonight.
Well, actually, we have two issues that both wanting people to go home here. So let's start with the one before that. That's approval of an amendment to the City of Roswell Code of Ordinance, Chapter 14, Sections 14.4.1 through 14.4.5. And the City Attorney, this is the first reading.
Establishment of Roswell Arts Commission. The Mayor and Council are hereby authorized to create and establish. Thank you. Establishment of Roswell Arts Commission. The Mayor and Council are hereby authorized to create and establish Roswell Arts Commission. When established, said board shall consist of 7 members serving staggered terms. I'm going to skip on down. Duties and responsibilities. The Roswell Arts Commission shall have the responsibility, and it shall be the Commission's principal purpose and duty, to be the primary advocate for the arts, to study and make recommendations to the Mayor and Council concerning creating a strong, thriving, culturally rich arts community and creative economy through collaborative relationships, financial support services for and promoting development of arts organizations, artists, cultural activity, and cultural tourism in the city. Roswell Arts Commission will advise the Mayor and Council on matters pertaining to the arts, culture, and cultural tourism. Roswell Arts Commission shall also have the responsibility, and it shall further be the Commission's discretionary duty. And it sets out additional ones, and the remainder of the ordinance is incorporated herein by reference.
Do we have a motion for approval?
The one question from committee was the very last section, section 14.4.5, and I think each of you received a handout that had 3 alternative readings in there, and the one that I'm approving tonight as part of this ordinance is the third option, which was labeled CAB alternate suggestion language number 2, which says the City Council member assigned a liaison to the Administration Department shall serve as an ex officio non-voting member of the Commission. The City Administrator shall appoint a staff member to serve as staff support to the Roswell Arts Commission. And the Cultural Arts Board is in agreement with this, and Rochelle, who's chairman of the currently Cultural Arts Board, soon to be Roswell Arts Commission, is here to make any comments. Do you want to come up, Rochelle? Do you have anything to say, or if you don't, you don't have to.
Let's find out if there are any questions before we hear. Does the council have any questions or comments? And Rochelle is there if any questions come up, and Councilman Orleans. Councilmember Price.
Yeah, I think that the option number 2 is probably preferable based on our discussions at committee. That was the sense I got. But as I look at it, I'm wondering, when it says ex officio, I know whenever I've served as an ex officio, you lose interest because you think that it doesn't matter if you're there or not. So I don't know if that's critical, that the person be voting, or just be an observer. So I'm just kind of looking for feedback from people.
Our practice has been liaison, whether it's the Rec Commission or any other board, is that they're not a voting member. They are there as a council member. You have influence whether you vote or not. So I don't want to start changing the makeup and how these boards run. The ex officio just means you're encouraged to go and be a liaison. So I don't want to see council members voting on boards.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. That the ordinances prohibit council members from serving in other voting capacities.
But it solves that answer, that question. Do we have a motion?
I move for approval with the wording for section 14.4.5 as I indicated, CAB alternate suggestion language number 2 in your papers tonight, and that will be moving forward as a first
That is for the
reading.
admin, the liaison.
Correct.
This would currently, the rec is a liaison.
Correct. Well, no, actually, there's really not a liaison. Right?
Well,
That would be kind of the rec.
Kind of.
Right.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Of course, both these guys are going to be passing this job on to someone else. That's a different question. Is further discussion?
Well, not necessarily. I could walk into it, or you could put me over there. I'm just leaving Parks and Rec, and he's leaving mid, so he gets out of it, but...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. I just want to say, as current liaison to the Administration Department, I'm delighted to fill this role.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? Anyone in the audience wish to comment? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item on our agenda is approval of an operational review of the historic homes and approval of budget amendment 27575402-08-26-13. And by historic homes, we include Smith Plantation, Bullock Hall, and Barrington Hall. This is basically an operational review, which will be investigating the potential to develop the historic sites into a regional cultural tourism destination and leverage financial sources to ensure financial sustainability. It's been proposed that the cost of this will be shared with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the city as partners in a 50-50 cost-sharing arrangement. So move for approval of the operational review.
And again, what was the cost of that?
Estimated cost is $25,500.
All right, we have a motion to approve the operational review. Does this require a budget amendment too?
I think this is all part of it. Yes.
So we're approving the review and along with $25,000.
Correct.
$12,500.
Half of that. Right.
$12,500. Half
Correct.
of that. All right. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Any questions by council? Councilmember Price.
Well, in 2008, when the first study was done, that was prior to my time. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, is this an additional study, or is this to implement that study, or is this a parallel, or what exactly? How does it fit with the prior study? Because we do have this tendency to study, and spend, and I just hope that we would get something for this amount of money.
That was a sales and marketing study, which I think also came up with the theme of the trilogy and putting the home together. So this scope of work would complement that prior study and build upon it. This is more into the operational view and strategic planning and maximizing what we can out of it. And they will be interviewing with a lot of people to get some information and feedback on what's going on now to make a study of where we should go.
Does this have the support of the Cultural Arts Board?
She's gone.
We don't know.
She's gone.
She's not here to object. Is this the recommendation of staff?
Well, the Cultural Art Board doesn't really, they're more into the arts than the homes.
This had been part of their jurisdiction. Does this come with the recommendation of staff?
Mayor, this does. The staff has had discussions about what to do with the homes, how to best utilize the homes. So to be able to do a study that moves into the operational side to find out how to bring more tourism in to make the homes more of a destination rather than just a sales and marketing aspect of it, certainly would be a study that would be well worth putting on top of the study that had been done back in '08.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Councilmember Wynn.
Mr. Fisher, you might be able to make sure that I get this question asked. I just want to make sure, and I see it on the scope of work, that we will be involving the directors of each home and their staff, just to make sure, because each home is very distinct and very, has their own unique qualities.
The staff of each one, some of the visitors that come in, there will be surveys that will be done, and it will be done on individual homes because, as you said, each one of them has different characteristics. So that will be part of this study.
And the reason, and I'm sorry, I was not at the committee meeting when this was discussed, and the CVB was chosen to be the lead entity, and what was the reasoning behind that?
Because of their tourism connections.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Councilmember Price.
So basically, it's a match with the CVB. We're providing half of the $25,500, but they are managing the study.
That's correct, and it's coming out of the hotel motel funds, which has to be used for tourism. You know, it's very specific what it can be used for, and this is an appropriate expense for that.
Does anybody from any of the homes have anything to say?
We have folks here. I'd like to hear from the historic homes, and at least one person and their historic homes' thoughts on this study. Somebody volunteer.
They don't want to.
Stuart Airy.
I'm Stuart Airy, 275 Spring Creek Road. I'm the president of Friends of Barrington Hall. We learned about this about a week or so ago, and it's interesting. I think there's some wonder of the outlook or the ultimate goal of the point of it. It's easy to say we want to promote tourism for our community and the three houses, but is this the way to do it? By studying what goes on at each house, is that going to get us to the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do? And those would be my comments. Thank you.
Question?
Go ahead, Councilmember Price.
I see that they have proposed a scope of work, but all I see is well, there is a scope of work here, but it doesn't seem real specific to me, but I'll reserve further comment at this time.
Do we have a motion? Did we get a motion in a second? Any further public discussion? Any further comments by council before we take a vote? You know, y'all don't be bashful if you've got any comments before we take a vote. I will give you my thoughts on this. We have an incredible resource in the three historic homes in Roswell. We have a huge investment in those historic homes. I believe that we're not taking full advantage of that. I see this as a way to try to say, how can we do a better job with our historic homes? The council recognizes that they're a big part of our heritage and a big part of our tourism effort, but I'm hopeful that by taking this study we'll be able to, I'm not going to use the word exploit the historic homes, but better utilize the historic homes, better market them, better enhance them, and given our investment in the historic homes, and the operating costs every year, we've never done we did a marketing review, but we haven't done an operating review, and I believe staff is, if they believe this will be helpful, then I support it. So any further discussion before we take a vote? All in favor of the motion raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Y'all can go home. Councilmember DiPolito, I'm sorry to interrupt you were on a roll, but...
I was on a roll, and we'll continue that. That's right. This is approval of a resolution to accept the amended 2013 Home Partnership Program Award in the amount of $111,765 and approval of budget amendment in the amount of $37,107. And I believe we have Mr. Fisher and Mr. Blitch to present this. And Mr. Blitch, if you would, during your remarks, talk about what the initial award was and how this is being revised. I think that would be helpful.
Yes, thank you, Mr. DiPolito. The original allocation for 2013 from HUD was a total of $74,658. We came to council, we got permission to accept those funds, we passed a resolution together, and then we submitted that paperwork to HUD, upon which they let us know that we actually received additional funds. So we received a new agreement, and now the agreement totals $111,765. So we are back here to ask your permission to accept the additional dollars.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito to accept the additional funds. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wynn. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The next item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a contract with Corellia Health for a wellness pilot program in an amount not to exceed $129,600 and approval of employee and city insurance premium cost sharing ratio and related premium surcharges. This will be presented by our Human Resources Director, Dan Roach.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this item seeks to establish our employee wellness program with the intended outcomes being to bend the cost curve that affects us with our health care expenditure back in our favor. There's a lot of factors we can't control, but we think through an effective wellness program we can bend that cost curve back in our favor. More importantly, we think this program has the potential to save employee lives, and frankly, if we prevent one heart attack, this program will be money very well spent, in my humble opinion. This program would mimic the brief, abbreviated pilot project that we did in 2012 that's comprised of a biometric screening, blood work, height, weight, BMI, blood pressure, all those biometric screens, and then risk stratification of individuals based on their test results. Following the risk stratification, we would go into an educational program. Individuals would get an educational session on Know Your Numbers so that they would know what the values in their blood work means for them and how they might better avail themselves of wellness opportunities that are out there. Individuals who are deemed to be in an at-risk or high-risk category would be enrolled in an 8-week coaching and wellness program to educate individuals about alternative or more healthy lifestyles to try to change those numbers in their favor. Individuals who are not in a risk stratification would go into a 3-week educational program, and then we would close out the program with a biometric screen at the end, analyze the results, and then come back to council for future years to determine whether or not the wellness program is worth continuing. What we're asking you for this evening is approval of a 1-year contract with Corellia Health to do a broader, wide-scale, all-city employee program for wellness with Corellia Health in the program that I just described. To motivate participation in that program, you know that in our July meeting we approved a renewal with Aetna for our medical insurance. That renewal carried with it a 6% increase. We've discussed sharing that cost increase with city employees at the rate of $20 per pay period. If individuals choose to participate in our voluntary wellness program, we'd like to ask that you approve a wellness credit so that they earn that $20 back. So the premium increase is going up $20 per pay period. If an individual participates in our wellness program, we would like to credit that back to them as a wellness participation credit. And then finally, we believe that the continued use of tobacco products is counterproductive to our health and wellness program. So we would recommend to you that we increase our tobacco use surcharge from $25 per tobacco user per pay period to $35 per tobacco user per pay period. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Price.
Yes, I'm a little confused just following the money. I mean, I think the program's a great idea. Obviously, we all need to be healthier, skinnier, more fit, et cetera, eating better, sleeping more. If we get home tonight, we'll maybe do that.
Yes, ma'am.
But talking about the cost, if the cost is $300 per participant, but we're going to charge them what will amount to $520 per year, although they can possibly get that back, but then we already have it in the budget for this year in excess of what would be needed for the budget for the program. I guess I'm trying to figure out why we charge the... I mean, I know it always helps to have a financial commitment to do something, but is that excessive? in that we've already got it covered in our budget?
We believe the increase is set at a range that would motivate participation in the wellness program. Whether it's excessive or not, I would have to leave that to others to address. We have talked in prior meetings about the difficulties that we face with employee pay raises. The raise that they got in July of last year was quickly kind of absorbed by the Social Security tax recess ending. So our employees have effectively gone without a salary increase for a number of years, if you consider that Social Security tax recess. So the relative fairness of the premium increase, I leave that to others to discuss. I would say that we've set it at a rate that we think motivates participation in the program. The 6% premium increase from Aetna amounted to almost exactly $280,000, and $20 per pay period by the number of participants that we have in our medical insurance is about $280,000. So we set the premium increase to kind of offset the 6% increase that we got from Aetna for our renewal this year. But do look forward to giving them the employees the opportunity to earn it back through participation in the wellness program.
But really, those are separate issues. The premium increase and this really are separate issues.
The amount, we do have a wellness budget of $175,000, so the $129,600 that it would cost for the Corelia Health Program is more than accounted for in our wellness budget. That is an accurate statement. If we just roll the program out and make it with no financial incentive to participate, I don't know that our participation rate would be as great as we would desire for it to be.
So if people drop out or don't meet the criteria and they don't get the money back, what's the plan for that windfall?
Well, good question. We've been saving for a rainy day for a number of years. One of the issues that we continue to address is whether or not the time is right for us to move into self-insured status from fully insured status. And so anything that would come back into the program would go into the group benefits fund for that purpose, would be saved kind of in a reserve for the prospect of going to self-insured status.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Councilman Orleans.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that, Dan, I'm glad to see us moving forward with this. You and I talked about it a couple years ago when I was over administration, and it does take time to get something implemented and to work up to this, and I know you had a trial group going through it, so I'm looking forward to this really helping us long-term on our health insurance experience, and also to help make our employees a little bit more motivated to be healthier, which we all need.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Orleans. I think this is a great thing to do. You know, I think they're saying, you know, the new, the 65 is now the new 40, so I'm hoping that's true, because I'm pushing that age pretty soon. And I also want to say that this is just not the only thing that the City of Roswell is doing. I'm in Weight Watchers, and y'all pay half of my monthly, and it's worked wonders. You know, I'm actually reached my goal a couple of weeks ago, so I'm just glad that you're looking and adding more and more to what we can do, because our employees is what makes this city so great, and we want to keep them healthy and strong and with us for a long, long time. So thank you for bringing this forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. I think this is a great program, and congratulations on reaching your 40th birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Roach, for employees that are not currently participating in the insurance program, do they have the option of enrolling in this program?
Yes, sir. We addressed that. We talked about it. At any time, if there's a qualifying event during the plan year, individuals could enroll in our insurance program, and certainly their decision to opt in or out of our program could renew itself every year during open enrollment, which we're about to begin tomorrow. So we think that it's effective for us to offer the program to all city employees, not just those who currently elect our coverage. So we would open it up to all city employees.
So I'm a little confused by your answer. A city employee who elects not to be in the insurance program could still enroll in the wellness program?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Our city attorney has a recommendation for closure for personnel litigation.
Personnel and real estate.
Personnel and real estate. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Wynn. All in favor, raise your hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned.